There we go. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch is connecting. Just in a moment here, we should be good. Welcome everybody to Wednesday. It is St. Patrick's Day. Happy sober St. Patrick's Day. I just learned about that this morning on Twitter Spaces with Samantha Kelly. And I'm trying to remember the other host I met this morning. I believe his first name's Mark, but met two people on Twitter Spaces and had a number of different people discussing travel and different aspects of St. Patrick's Day today. Today, we are going to play around with scenes within OBS. And OBS allows me to share my video, which we're doing. This is the first day I've turned off the green screen because it's St. Patrick's Day. I have my Excel shirt on, Brian Jones. And I've got two scenes set up here. I've got one scene that includes my video capture device, my display capture, and my audio capture. And then I have another scene that only includes my video and audio, not my display capture. So I'm going to add a display capture here so you can see my secondary screen. And we'll just resize it so it's smaller. So kind of the reverse of what I've been doing before, where you can see my video of my screen, but you don't see my my screen full size. I'm full size. So scene one, I'm small, my screen is big. And then scene two, my screen's small over here, and I'm bigger. And this is some of what you can do with OBS. I can create these different scenes and then quickly transition between them. So the other thing that I can do, and I haven't played around with this setting just yet, but if I drag over Teams here, since we're talking about Teams live streaming, if I go into a Meet Now meeting, and we'll just set this up with video camera. You'll see one of my choices in the video camera dropdown. Let's switch to the scene where that's bigger and easier to see here. Oh, I think it's because I have that dialog box open. Let's see if that's what's causing it to not switch. Oh, it's because I'm in the scene 3 dialog box here. So we'll switch back to scene 1. There we go. So you can see my screen now better. If I schedule a meeting or do a live event or a Meet Now, one of my options in the video is now an OBS virtual camera. So some of the tricks that I can do with a background and maybe a PowerPoint behind me, other things that I can do in OBS, I can bring to Microsoft Teams live events or just Teams meetings in general. So that's kind of the culmination of a couple things we've done up to this point with Teams live events, with streaming, with both StreamYard, Restream, and Teams live events, and then looking at bringing all these things together with OBS and Restream, StreamYard, different streaming services, connecting those different services. And we'll bring that all together in the future with a course where you have an option to participate and learn these same types of skills, which are very transferable to many different aspects, either at a company you already work for, at a partner, or even at Microsoft or these different streaming services. So it really gives you a leg up on people that don't have these skill sets yet for online meetings. So we've got Teams set up, and I have the ability to connect into meetings from there. I'm sharing with Restream, and I can even set up a live event and connect that in with Restream. So if I wanted to stream this on multiple platforms, 5 platforms at this point, I can set up Restream org-wide, choose an external app, decide if I have Q&A. So Teams would allow me to do the presenter and webcams from within Teams. External app can be something like Restream. And then what I do within Restream is I grab my external server ingest URL that is provided, and I copy that into Restream as a custom RTMP location for the live meeting or live event within Microsoft Teams. So it's fairly easy to set all this up once you have all the software licensing and the software set up on a system. I'm doing this from one computer with 2 screens. So let's take a look at that real quick, because that's helpful for what we're doing. If I right click on my desktop, you can see I have the IT crowd. One of my favorite, at least Irish characters, would be Roy, played by Chris O'Dowd. He is also in the show Moonboy, which is another one of my favorite series, as well as the director of the IT crowd did Black Books, which Chris is not in as an actor, but there are some wonderful Irish characters in that show as well. So if I go into display settings and I take a look, you can see that my secondary display that I'm displaying from is very, very small compared to the resolution of my Surface Studio, which is 4,000 by 4,500 by 3,000, and gives me plenty of room for multiple windows and sharing either just a window as opposed to the entire desktop. It's like having 4 almost 15-inch displays in one screen. But having a secondary screen is super helpful when you're doing these types of events with Teams, because I can either share my secondary screen, the smaller one, with less screen real estate, or the really large one and use that smaller monitor for maybe notes or other things that I want to have available during a meeting, whether that's a produced live event, whether that's a regular Teams meeting, training, whatever else it might be. So within the OBS environment, the other thing that I have now is the ability to dock the chat. So I have the ability to actually see my chat and welcome everybody to, we'll call it Sober St. Patrick's Day. And Samantha Kelly mentioned that this is going live on YouTube later today. And I looked it up earlier. Sober St. Patrick's Day. And it's the 10th year that this is happening. So here we go. Let's share that website with everybody here. And we'll move the sources and our scenes off so you can take a look. So this has happened for the last 10 years. And it's going to be live on YouTube in about an hour, almost 2 hours. And I can set a reminder to remind myself to watch that. So check that out if you haven't already seen it. It's premiering on YouTube in a couple hours. And Samantha Kelly also does these types of tools, has a great YouTube channel with tutorials and information. And I look forward to connecting either on Twitter Spaces or otherwise with her, as well as others that I've met within that beta, which is now both iOS for hosting rooms and Android for participating. Unlike the other audio-only app that I use, this one is now already cross-platform to Android, and it is in early beta or early release, so not exactly certain if I have Jay Taylor to thank for this, but I would imagine he may have had something to do with my early access to Twitter Spaces. I was on a space with him the morning before it showed up for me as something I can actually host on Twitter, which is great. The other thing that I've been experimenting with, and I haven't really thought through exactly how I would go about doing this, is obviously on my iPhone, I could bring up Twitter Spaces within the app, and then this is what it looks like from a standpoint of my configuration. So you get a configuration on the phone, if I can bring that up again here, where I've got three choices when I go to do a new tweet. And one of those options is to bring up a new space. So I can actually bring up a space to host, give it a name, decide who comes up to the stage. Up to 10 speakers can speak at a time on Twitter Spaces, and I can host those rooms and should be able to do things like host and then have the audio maybe coming from another computer and have people connected through a Teams meeting as well as a Twitter Space, and then being able to communicate with each other through some kind of shared audio and microphone situation. But I really need to think through that and how best to share that where I'm not just holding up my phone and trying to give you the sense for what the software looks like. It's on my iPhone, so I need to think about how I'm projecting my iOS device within Windows. Yesterday we did an Android device, which, because it supports Miracast, is built right into Windows 10. But I need to think through how I'm going to do my iOS device. I've used a couple different pieces of software, one of which is Duet. And I could also, I guess, run this meeting from a Mac computer. That might make it easier, or native, to share an iOS screen as well. But I haven't done that in quite a while, so I need to investigate what my options are there. Like I said, this is one of the only days that I'm using my green screen as a green screen because of St. Patrick's Day. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. And the other thing we're going to be discussing today is change within your organization. One of the things that I've spent numerous months doing is helping organizations make the transition to Microsoft Teams through training, live events training. What else did we do? We did champions training for organizations, and then breakout room training. So some advanced training, even admin training for teams. And one of the things that became apparent is that sometimes that pain of changing becomes something that you need to work with somebody to realize the benefits of the change. And at first, it may feel a little different, like using OBS for the first time, or StreamYard, or Restream. But the more I expose myself to these different applications, the easier it becomes to become familiar with them, to see what they can do, to see how they interact with the other applications like Teams that I use all the time. And that is a muscle that you get better at flexing when you do it. even learning some of the tricks and the tips that might help you with that uncomfortable feeling about how you're doing something today can be one of the benefits that you bring to leveraging Microsoft Teams. For instance, until I learned about the keyboard shortcuts, I was doing a lot of movement of my mouse around a screen or two, depending on my setup. Right now I have 2 screens, so I might be moving my mouse from one screen in a meeting to the other screen to do things in Teams. But as soon as I realized some of the keyboard shortcuts, it really changed the way I use Microsoft Teams. And the best analogy I can think of is putting on a shirt and not getting your deodorant all over the outside of your shirt. And I don't know how many of you know the trick for not having any kind of deodorant, especially if it's the roll-on kind or a solid deodorant, not getting that potentially on the outside of your shirt. But the trick that somebody shared with me, and it just never occurred to me because it's not how I do this, is by putting your shirt on from your head first as opposed to your left or your right arm first. If you put on your left or your right arm, you take the, risk of some of that deodorant wiping off on the outside of the shirt as opposed to just staying on the inside of the shirt. However, if you put your head through a t-shirt or a shirt of any sort, polo, first, you can't get any of that deodorant on the outside of the shirt. So sometimes it's just not how you're doing something, but maybe making an adjustment to that can avoid something that you might be experiencing today. So if you're using Teams and you're either overwhelmed by navigating the interface or the amount of teams that you're on, there are a lot of things that you can learn, especially with keyboard shortcuts, that can change that significantly. And the fact that you can rearrange the teams that you're on. So the order of the teams that I am part of is not just static. It is similar to other applications where I can drag and drop my teams within the list. I can hide teams that aren't as important to me, and they show up at the bottom of the list under hidden teams. And you can do the same thing with channels. I can even pin channels that are most important. They always stay at the top, and then I can rearrange pinned channels. Some of those types of tricks or information, once learned, become, oh, this isn't as bad as I first felt when I didn't understand some of those tips or tricks. So the same type of thing can go for putting on a shirt and not getting deodorant all over the outside of it. We've talked about the analogy for bananas and how you open a banana. If you pinch the bottom and not hack at the stem, it is much easier to peel and enjoy a banana. There are some trade-offs with some of these things. My wife doesn't like pinching the bottom of the banana because then you've got that kind of seed or end of the banana to deal with right away, as opposed to the stem end. And she eats down to that, the seed or the end or the bottom of the banana, and then just throws the peel away. But learning different ways allows you to look at, here's the different ways that I could approach this, and then come up with what you're most comfortable with. For many people that I meet, keyboard shortcuts can really change the way they use an application. And then having a reference to all those keyboard shortcuts, which in Teams is Control. Press those 2 keys and you see all of the dozens of different keyboard shortcuts that are available within the Teams app. Those are your tips for this Wednesday, March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Please check out Sober St. Patrick's Day, the 10th anniversary of that. And I look forward to reconnecting with people I met over in Dublin. I did both training there a couple of years ago and then was there in high school and met a number of youth my age at the hotel my parents were staying at. I mentioned this morning, I ended up pulling an all-nighter visiting with them because back when I was in high school, it wasn't like, hey, we'll keep in touch, give me your phone number, or we'll just use the internet and chat and Facebook and all the other things we have at our disposal today to keep in touch. It was more just an opportunity that one evening to visit, to ask about what school was like for them, what they did for fun, just differences within them living in a completely different country than I did. And they asked me questions as well. This last time that I went to Dublin, I had the, fortune of getting an opportunity to drive on what they would consider the right side of the road, but that's the left side from my perspective. And I drive on the right side of the road here in the U.S. I've been to London and been in cars that are where the driver is on the right side and you drive on the left side of the road. But I've never driven one of those cars before. So the last time I was in Dublin, I had the opportunity to rent a VW Volkswagen Bug and take that out. It was a stick shift on top of it, so I got to learn how to shift with my left hand as opposed to my right hand, which I'm used to. And it was really fun to do something completely different while I was there. I also had an opportunity to attend Dublin's Toastmasters, their largest and first Toastmasters group within the country. And the nice thing about that was there were over 100 attendees, and some of the funniest speeches I've ever seen in Toastmasters were given that night. So happy sober St. Patrick's Day. In a couple hours, we'll learn all about that. I look forward to attending that event later today and then celebrating with my family this evening in my green Excel shirt. And thanks, Brian Jones, for the reminder about my favorite Excel shirt. Hopefully you dug yours out of the closet as well. I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and we'll see you for Tech Thursday tomorrow, same time, 1 p.m. Central. 1 p.m. Central and 2 p.m. Eastern. Have a great day, everyone.